My guest Amanda desperately wanted to get married and have a baby with her boyfriend, and she was practicing the 6 intimacy skills with that outcome in mind. But instead of stepping up, he broke up with her, and she was heartbroken. And at 41 years old, hopeless about having a baby. But today, she's married to the man of her dreams and the father of her baby. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. Amanda, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. I'm really excited to get to hear your whole story today.
Thank you, Laura. I am thrilled to be here with you.
All right, let's go back to the bad old days. What was happening for you?
Yeah, the bad old days were there was a long time of bad old days, which isn't to say that I was unhappy that whole time, but I had, as you said in your introduction, I was in my 40s. When I encountered your work, I was already in my late 30s, and I had wanted to be married for decades at that point. And I always ended up with relationships that didn't really go anywhere. And I was kind of like, what is going on here? Why do I keep ending up in these non-starting relationships? Or I would meet someone and get really excited about them, and then it just wouldn't pan out the way that I wanted. And that is a situation when I encountered your book through a friend of mine. I had been with the man of my dreams. He seemed just totally perfect for me, and we really, really clicked. And he had broken up with me, and he was at the point that I encountered your book, The Empowered Wife. He wasn't even responding to text messages. Like, we were just completely broken up. And I was totally heartbroken. I was staying with my parents because, we had been living together. And so my whole life had dissolved when we broke up. I was staying with my parents. I was 39 years old. So I was thinking I'm going to have a baby by myself if I want to if I want to be able to have my own baby, which I did. I wanted to be able to kind of like be pregnant and have the whole experience. And I thought I was getting really old for that. And so then I encountered your book, and I started practicing intimacy skills, which was just a complete 180 flip for me around a lot of things that I had been doing in relationships before. So, I used to ask my boyfriend all the time, how are you feeling? And try to kind of fix what he was feeling. So when I read your book and I learned, I'm supposed to ask myself, how am I feeling? What do I want? And then kind of act on that rather than trying to take apart what he's feeling. It felt really scary to do that.
It is scary. Yeah, it's vulnerable.
Yeah.
So the breakdown in this relationship is what kind of got you looking for something else besides what you'd been doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. I had a dear friend who, the thing is, I was literally paid by other people to help them with their relationships at that point. So it was very humbling when a really dear friend suggested, she gathered a couple friends together and she said, I want to kind of like dive into relationship together. We called it love school. She called it love school. And so we were diving into learning how to, manifest the relationship we wanted. And at some point she suggested we all read this book, The Empowered Wife. And I was kind of like, I'm sure I already know everything in there because I've been teaching other people about relationships. It's probably just a watered down version, but because I respected her so much, I requested it from the library, and then I kind of forgot about it. And when it came a few weeks later and I started reading it, I was just, oh my gosh, like humble pie, just eating. I just felt so, I felt like, even though I wasn't married, I was reading the book and it's addressed to someone as if they're married. I felt like you were talking to me directly. I know a lot of people have that experience. It's like, wow. And especially because I had been helping people with their relationship. I say that in quotes.
What were you like? You say you were teaching people about relationships, like you were a teacher or what? Like, and what? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the distant past, I was a teacher, a classroom teacher. But at the point that I encountered your work, I had left public school teaching partly because I was pursuing training in nonviolent communication because I had found that work so helpful. And so I was really deeply involved in training people in that work and facilitating groups. And I had a lot of private clients. And I had added in other practices, but that was kind of the basic practice. And when I read your book, I realized, I mean, I'm glad we're talking now and not right then, because at that point I was angry. I was like, how come no one ever told me this? Now I realize, I read the book and I realized, gosh, so many of my mentors in that work were not married and didn't have happy partnerships, which is what I wanted. And I was getting help for that. So,
Yeah.
I,
Like a
I know
personal trainer who had a spare tire.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I just really, that was a huge, the emperor has no clothes moment for me. So, I'm grateful to those mentors now. And it's like, there's a place for every tool and I was so grateful I found somebody who could help me with what I wanted, which was, I was a woman who wanted to be married to a man. And just acknowledging that it would like make me sweat just to acknowledge, like, I'm just sure that, all of this social justice work and social change work that I do, like, and for myself, I really want to be married. I'm a woman who wants to be married to a man. It was very vulnerable to acknowledge that.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, and I get that. I think, I know some of us are raised like, don't ever depend on a man and you should just be independent. And that's like, it's not a proper desire. We shouldn't want that in a way. And it sounds like that was your conditioning as well. Is that right? That's
Absolutely.
why it was so vulnerable to say it. Like it kind of
Yeah.
goes against
Yeah.
the tribe you were raised in, maybe. Is that?
Yeah. I mean, and my parents have been married at this point for 55 years. So
Wow.
and they love being together. So it's not like what I witnessed in my family discouraged that. It was more just this kind of like, you can do anything, like you're a smart young person, like you can do anything you want, and not to be limited by being a woman the way previous generations were. And then on top of that, the idea that there's so many there's so many problems in the world, and in order to solve these problems, we can't just be isolated in our individual family, our individual couples, and that we need to kind of gather together as community. And I think what was missing from that for me is that for me to be the member of the community that I want to be, it means having a really solid family, and that's what I'm experiencing now.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. I love this. So, all right. So you get the book and you have this huge whole pie of humble pie, it sounds like. It feels kind of bad in a way. It feels good and bad. It sounds like both. And then what do you start doing differently than what you had been doing?
Yeah. Well, I'm taking a breath, because there's when I found your book, and then I still went on for a couple of years from that, of continuing in this relationship with a boyfriend who, he hadn't asked me to marry him, and so I was kind of practicing the skills as if we were married, which really worked well in a lot of ways. But I was still like holding on to this, like, I really want him to ask me to marry him. I want to be married to this person. And, when I think of it, it's like, I'm too old to kind of like start over with someone else, or, that's not what I was consciously thinking. I really was in love with him and I wanted to be with him, but, it was kind of like, and it has to work out with this person, because,
Because the
I
clock
don't
is
have
ticking.
time with someone else. Yeah. So when you ask me, what did I start doing differently? I see it now as a real gift that that wasn't his path to go forward with marriage and having a baby. And so it was a gift that he kind of like sat me down and said, if you want to have a baby, like, we need to end this relationship. Like, it happened multiple times. But the kind
Ouch.
of final time, yeah, huge out. I mean, part of what I did differently was, at that point, I had so much support from the Laura Doyle coaching community. I had, um, that was key, because to slip back into the old patterns of trying to get back together, would have been really easy. And a moment that I really remember, was going to the coaches symposium, and I, I received so much amazing coaching, but one moment that stands out is, one of the coaches there approached me and she said, I had a really similar story to yours. So my boyfriend had just broken up with me, and I hadn't let go of the idea that somehow, if I relinquish control, it was going to work out, that we will get married and have a baby some way that I can't imagine. And she said, I had a really similar experience. And what I did was I made a list of all the things I was longing for in my husband, or all the things I loved about my boyfriend that I wanted to have in the person I married, because I really felt like he was the one. And what I did was I crossed his name off the top, and I wrote my husband to be, or my husband. And that way it could be him who ends up filling that, or it could be someone else. And so that I did that afternoon. I made that list, and it felt like jumping off a cliff to let go of this person who I had been kind of like trying to make it work with for so long. And it was so liberating to really, I can feel my heart beating really fast now. It felt so liberating to relinquish control of, it needs to work out with this person, and just be like, this is my vision. This is completely on my paper, as you say, just what I would love. And yeah, when I met the man who I'm now married to, it was eerie, actually, all of the things from the list that I made. And I read them, I read every morning, every night, I read this image of what I was the vision I had for the marriage I would be in.
Wow. So it was more about the experiences you would have instead of the person you would have them with. So there was a huge letting go of your attachment to, it's kind of like how it's going to happen. Your idea was, the way it's going to happen is my boyfriend's going to propose and then say, let's have a baby. And, that didn't turn out to be, So, okay. So, all right. So you got this coaching, and you made a huge internal shift, really. And it sounds like that's pretty much it, though, is you made this list, you read this list morning and night, which I love. That was like your commitment, even though, and it was terrifying. It was terrifying because it didn't seem like your vision was possible if it wasn't going to be him. Is that right?
It didn't seem like my vision was possible if it wasn't going to be him. I just couldn't imagine somebody having, in retrospect, I'm like, I just so appreciate about that myself. It's my loyalty to someone, that I thought, I can't imagine loving someone like this, or someone who has all these qualities I love. And I just appreciate that's what it feels like to be loyal to one person. And so I had that internal shift, and yet it was still, that was in the fall. That whole winter, I just kind of, my heart hurt so much of that time. And that's where it was so helpful to get coaching. So often to get lots of coaching. I was in basically emergency self-care for 6 months, kind of like, I'm not trying to save money for the future or anything. Just like, my goal right now is, how do I help myself feel better today? And that was what I needed to do every day, because I had this kind of like buzzing beehive of anxiety in my chest. I couldn't sleep because I would feel so anxious going to bed by myself every night. And I had a coaching friend who was in New Zealand, so she could talk to me in the middle of the night, because it was the middle of the day for her. And I don't know what I would have done. There are times I literally had a panic attack because I would run into my ex-boyfriend, and I just needed all that support, and someone who, her and so many people in the coaching community who were standing for my vision, that I could meet someone. And I just thought, that's that's just absolutely crazy. Like, I'm barely able to like put on sweatpants to get out of the house. Like, how could it be that I'm just going to bump into someone who, you know, wants to, or who's a fit for me, you know, like I'm not in any state to, but I just kept having faith over fear and taking, the invitations to coaching that I received. Um, and then I, I started dating. A friend of mine suggested. So what I haven't mentioned is that because I thought, well, I don't really have time to meet somebody the conventional way and have a slow, relaxed courtship and then, you know, get married and then get pregnant and have I just don't know. Cause I was seeing doctors who were like, well, I don't know if it's going to be possible for you to get pregnant at your age. And that was really scary to hear. So I was pursuing having a baby on my own. Yeah. I was pursuing having a baby on my own with a sperm donor. And that was at the same time that I had this vision of, I would love to have, you know, uh, I wanted to have like the really classic fairy tale where I got to meet someone and get swept off my feet and have this beautiful big wedding. And then I was like, I don't know how these things compute. And so I didn't try to figure it out. That was what relinquishing control meant for me. It's like, I'm following this path of choosing a sperm donor and getting all the ducks in a row for that. And then at the same time, I started dating and I, and actually because I had let go of the idea that my future partner was going to be the biological father of my child. I mean, that was, you know, hours and hours of crying. It was like a huge letting go. But because of that, when I was actually dating, I felt very relaxed because there's like, well, there's no pressure, you know, this doesn't need to happen on a particular timeline. And so I really focused instead of what I had done the 20 years before that, you know, from my whole adult life when I would meet someone, get really excited, and I would kind of like put out all this energy towards connecting with them. And instead I really kept focusing on how do I feel, what do I want? And when I was tempted to text, you know, the guy I was interested in, I would like call a friend or text another coach and get support in that way.
And this is
So that
different
was a
than how
huge, pardon?
that was a big distinction from how you had gotten into relationships previously.
It was, it was night and day. It was night and day.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit about that. Like, how did you get into the relationship with the man who broke up with you because you wanted to have a baby?
Yeah, it's so cringy. So, but I will share. Um, well, we met as friends and, he was you know, another friend of mine had been dating him and they broke up. And, so I met him as a friend and we were just, it was like, oh, this is like the best, you know, I found myself like, oh, I want to spend the rest of my life with this friend. Like he's the best. And my housemate at the time was like, that's kind of, you know, that's an interesting way of talking about a friend. And it sounds like you really like him because I was interested in someone else at the time. So I brought up to him that, you know, hey, I have these feelings for you and I'm really interested in you for partnership. And I thought I needed to do that because I was 10 years older and I was the one who had the, like, you know, the skills to do that. I was a communication trainer. So it was like I was being very transparent and empowered by doing that. And it, you know, and being vulnerable by saying like, I want to be with you. And he was, you know, he wanted to be friends, but he kept saying like, well, it sounds like you want to have a baby and that's not what you know, that's not something I'm going to do anytime in the next 15 years, which for me at 39 or however old I was at the time, 38, it's like, well, I'm going to need to do that sooner. So there was kind of this dance that happened, but each time I kept pursuing him. And in fact, one time I didn't hear from him for 2 weeks and I kind of like did some sleuthing, like reached out to people he knew to see like, oh, can you have him call me or get in touch with me? You know, it was like, I was like, well, I have to keep things going here because this is what I want. Yeah. So it felt like I had to keep doing all the work to keep things going. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So you were pursuing him and there
I was
wasn't,
pursuing him.
he
Yeah.
wasn't giving you a whole lot back, but you guys did get together.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
ultimately he asked me to be his girlfriend,
oh, okay.
so, but I was the one who initially expressed interest um, and also who I had this idea, like he's asking me to be his girlfriend. And he said that he doesn't want to have a baby anytime in the next 15 years, but I'll just kind of like be quiet about that for now, which, um, that was not like honoring of the deep desire I had.
Yeah, wasn't authentic for you. And did part of you just think, well, I'll just persuade him, or like he'll change his mind,
I just
or
thought he'd changed his mind. Yeah, I didn't think I was going to persuade him. I thought if I just do things perfectly enough, he will realize, like, of course I want to do that with you. And if I just didn't rock the boat, too
yeah,
much, then I would be able to, he would realize that he did want that, which when I think about it now, it just seems very disrespectful of his life journey. And,
mm,
um, I'm not sure what lessons I can draw for other people, but for myself, I think if I had listened to that and been like, if I really respect what this person is saying and I honor myself, like, what if I trusted that I don't have to kind of like, contort myself to fit into this situation because it seems like the right one?
yeah. And just kind of back to the how do you feel and what do you want? Like, how did you feel when he was saying, I'm not going to have a baby in the next 15 years? Like
Oh yeah, I
the
felt heartbroken. I mean, and that we had that pattern multiple times in our relationship where I would like go away for a few days and grieve and let go of it, and then he might like approach me again and I'd be like, okay, well maybe this can work. So it was kind of complicated in that way. Um, what I do know is that was before I found your book, and I didn't have the skill of self-care. I mean, I was very good at self-care in my version, which was like eating kale for breakfast and like making sure I went to bed early, those kinds of things. But I wasn't really, I mean, I was going through a really, like a long health journey because I was having sleep challenges. So I didn't have a lot of, um, like resources in my life at the time. So when I met him, it felt like suddenly like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for. So, it was kind of like putting all of my happiness on someone else's presence rather than like, what if I wouldn't have said that at the time, but just, I was good at like taking care of myself in kind of like a virtuous way, but not in a, like, what would just be fun and
a frivolous fun
frivolous.
thing. Wasn't much happening, but it
No,
kind of
it
felt
wasn't.
like you could get some of that when you were with him. It sounds like.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So now, he's broken up with you and you have, yeah, where are we?
I
Where,
know, it's such
like,
a
what happens now?
winding story. Yeah. Well, so he broke up with me and I got clear, like, okay, I'm going to go forward with having a baby and I'm just going to trust that the right man for me. I knew that eventually I would end up with an amazing man. And it felt like that was a long way off. And so if I wanted to have a baby, I had to go forward with doing that on my own. And I felt like the world just showered me with love. Like when I shared with people, especially people who were in my life then and knew my experience, that I just broken up with this person. And I said, I'm going to go forward with becoming a mother on my own. Like people were so kind and generous and wanted to support me.
Mm,
People I didn't even really know. I mean, I made a lot of friends at that time of people who stepped forward and said, I want to help you do this. And people said, like, you can come live in our house. We'll make a new bathroom in the basement and you can live there with your baby. Or like, just people were so kind. There's something about honoring your desire that that was my experience, that people really respond to that. And so I was
yeah.
moving forward with that. I went to a friend's house and like it felt like a whole week on the computer trying to choose the right sperm donor, which was so much more fraught than I imagined. And just such an intense experience. And I couldn't figure it out. I'm trying to, there's like the postal deadline of when I need to place the order in order for it to arrive in time. And it just, I was not clear. And so I kept getting coaching, and the coaches kept saying like, what if you trusted that you did not have, what are you wanting right now? It's like, I don't know. I don't want any of these choices. Like, well, what if you just trusted the timing? It felt absolutely terrifying to think, if I don't go through with it this month, maybe this is my last, maybe I won't be fertile much longer. And so, but I kept getting coaching, and from friends who had been through that experience of having a baby on their own, and also from the coaching community. And so month after month, something would happen, like the sperm bank ran out of the kind of like shipping containers that they needed one time. It's like, what? And it's like, I'm like, okay, universe, I'm getting the car that I was going to use to drive, the hour and a half to go pick. It was like, I'll come pick it up. The car I was going to use broke down. There are all sorts of things like that, like where I would be like, well, I'll find a way around. And then I actually went and picked up, like the sperm that I was going to use from Seattle. I drove it all the way home, and I knew I'm not going to go forward with this because it feels like having a stranger in my home. It doesn't feel like the right person. And so I'm remembering a conversation with my dad at that time, just like feeling it's not quite right. And my dad said, I really trust you around this. And just, I think he said something like, you don't have to rush. Like, you're very healthy. This scary idea that you have to rush. So that was really comforting. I lost my train of thought so I didn't end up going through with that. And this conversation with my dad, where it's like, well, there's of this whole catalog, there's only one profile in there that I even remotely feel comfortable with. It's that being the sperm donor. And but they don't know when it's going to be available again, because there's all these kind of guidelines around how to like quarantine and make sure that it's safe, and like they do testing for AIDS on it and stuff. And so they have all these, and they didn't know when it was going to be available, and they couldn't guarantee there would be enough for me. So is all these like ifs. And my dad said, well, if that's what you want to do, like, you can wait. You have to pick someone that feels like a second compromise. And so I was like, okay. So then I had several months of waiting. And in that time, I went to Costa Rica on a dance retreat, like just really wild self-care, things I never would have let myself do in the past. It just seemed so extravagant. And
frivolous. Yeah.
Frivolous, so frivolous. Yeah, totally. And then a friend of mine suggested, do you even want to have a baby by yourself right now? And I was like, absolutely not. Like, I'm still heartbroken over my last relationship. I'm living by myself in a converted garage. Like, this is not the time. I'm so far away from my family, living across the country from my family. But I feel like I have to do it now because of the timing. I'm about to turn 42. And, but she said, why don't you just start dating and see, you don't have to figure out how that relates to the timing of getting pregnant. Just start dating. So she helped me get an online profile and get started with that. And help me figure out, like, how do you just have fun and not get kind of like mired in the details of the online world. So, and so I started doing that, and there's so many parts of the story. It's hard to say which parts to tell, but a friend of mine asked me at one point, like, how's it going? And I told her, well, I'm still waiting for my preferred sperm donor. And I just started dating, and she said, oh, how's that going? And I said, well, yeah, I'm having fun. I'm just enjoying myself. That's, I haven't been like wowed by any of the experiences I've had, but that's, I'm just having fun. And she said, we were on a walk, and she said, I just keep thinking of this person I know who I think you would really hit it off with. And I don't even know if he's dating. because he's went through a divorce. I don't know if he's dating, but I think you would hit it off even just professionally. So would it be okay if I connected to you? And I was like, sure. I didn't have any there was no oh, this is going to be it kind of feeling. It was just like, sure, because people say that kind of thing,
Yeah.
So she sent a text message to the two of us, and I was kind of waiting for him to respond to it, because I was like, I'm going to follow Laura's advice from, I was reading The Surrendered Single, your book, The Surrendered Single. And I was going to follow your advice of not pursuing him. And so the one thing I did was I sent a text just saying hi, nice to meet you. Or I think I said, I'd love to go for a walk sometime. I might have said, I can't even remember. It was I was allowed myself one message of just responding to the text message that the friend sent.
And you expressed a desire too, hit it, a pure desire.
And I expressed a desire, love to go for a walk. And so I think it took a while, maybe a week or more for him to respond. And I had let it go. I was like, I'm not going to pursue this person. But he suggested, what about this day and time? And we went for a walk. We met, and I, when I arrived at the parking lot, I was like, that's a really cute guy over there. I could tell, that must be him. And I was just so aware, I remember the drive to meet him. I'm really just focusing on enjoying myself, staying connected to how I'm feeling, and just enjoying myself and receiving. That's one of the 6 intimacy skills, receive, that was very new to me. It's still, this morning, I was like, what are the 6 intimacy skills again? I can think of 5. It's I couldn't remember the 6th one. Receive. I need to keep remembering. And so I'm focusing on just receiving, and I was having such a wonderful time on the walk. And we finished the walk, and then we decided to do another loop, go for another walk. And then we ended with this idea, or he asked me, he said something, we talked about how we had both taken a sabbatical year. And so he was asking me all about my sabbatical, which I hadn't talked about in a really long time. He really got me talking, which was, that was notable. And on other dates I'd been on, I felt like I was doing a lot of listening. And I felt kind of breathless at the end of this walk, because it was gosh, how did he got me talking? He was so curious about me and really got me talking. But so we talked about sabbatical, and he said something I love practices around rest, sabbatical. He said, that's why I love celebrating Shabbat. And I was like, oh, I like celebrating Shabbat too. And it's funny, because then he said, are you Jewish? And I said, yes. Are you? And he said, no, which I thought was funny that he celebrates Shabbat, but he's not Jewish. It's very unusual. But it kind of gave me chills, because one of my visions had been my future family, we love celebrating Shabbat together. And so it was just odd that it come up by his, he brought it up. I didn't bring it up. So he said, oh, maybe we could have Shabbat dinner together sometime. And I was like, I would love that. In the past I would have said, great, well, I'm available tomorrow. How about you? I just said, I would love that. And so I went home, I drove home, and I was kind of jumping out of my skin, that felt really good. And, resisted the urge to send a text follow-up or something. And many hours later, late that night, he sent me a text message about how much he'd enjoyed it. And I think again, the next day, in the past, I would have sent a flood of text messages, following up on all these things we connected about, and all these ideas, and inviting him to this thing or that thing. And instead I got coaching, and the coaching was, go get some self-care, which I did. And sure enough, a few days later, he messaged me saying how about next week, on Friday? And so I said, that sounds great. And in the meantime,
why next week? Why not tomorrow?
It was because I had said, I'm going away for the weekend. I'm going to this dance event. And so it was great, because I had all this self-care planned. Yeah. But it's funny, because you say that in the meantime, it's well, we're not going to see each other till next week. We could probably hang out in the meantime, but I just, that's what I would have done in the past. This time, in the meantime, I really actually didn't think about him that much in the meantime because I was doing fun things with my friends and taking care of myself. And yeah, so it just right from the start was really different than what I'd done in the past when I
Yeah.
really connected with someone, you know?
Wow. Love that. So cool. And it sounds like it was authentic for you. Like this wasn't a manipulation, right? I mean, I think aren't there rules like you can't answer a text after Wednesday or something like that, right?
Uh,
You know what I mean? Like there's a whole, right? But this wasn't that. This was just you being responsive to yourself and really honoring what you wanted.
yeah, I love that question or, these roles. I felt when I think about it now, it just feels like so much more dignified that I was not thinking like, oh, like there's this one chance and I have to make sure it happens because I felt really dignified. I had gotten clear in the experience of dating over, the month or so before that I am I'm a great catch. Like I don't have to go chasing after anyone. I don't have to make anything happen. Like I can just really be relaxed and enjoy myself and I don't have to be worried like, oh, what if he loses my phone number? Or what if he thinks when I made this facial expression, it meant I wasn't that interested? Or, it's like, I can just trust this to unfold. I can kind of get out of the way of myself in that way. And,
This is a place of confidence you're coming from.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
place of
It's
confidence
confidence.
and just receiving. And, I love just the idea of faith over fear, like each step of the way. If I just had faith and I wasn't afraid something was going to go wrong or I had to control something, what would I do right now? It's like, oh, I would, go for a walk or call a friend or whatever. I wouldn't have to spend all this time like meticulously proofreading a text message I'm going to send him or something like that. I was really
I
good at
love
that. I
it.
used to be an English teacher. So like write these really beautiful and perfectly spelled text messages.
No grammatical errors in those. No ending a text with a preposition or anything like that. Okay,
Exactly.
gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So you meet him, you guys have Shabbat dinner together. Like, what happens? How do you have a baby?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. If there were a movie of this story, I would roll my eyes and think it's just so unrealistic how it unfolded.
Oh yeah. Okay. This can never happen in real life. What actually happened
Yeah.
to you?
Yeah. Just, it's kind of like the way things unfolded. I sometimes literally be like laughing to myself with him so I'll tell one story about that. So we go on this walk and then we have Shabbat dinner together. That goes really, really well. We end the night with him saying like, I feel so comfortable with you. I feel so good. I don't remember how he said it, but I remember he had his hand on his chest and he was like, I just feel so good with you. And I'm so touched by his just straightforwardness and, like connection to himself and straightforwardness. Um, and so, yeah, there were so many things that came up during that dinner. It was like, oh, I'd love to show you this. I'd love to do that with you. I'd love, so it was kind of like, ooh, yeah, I want to do all those things. And he was leaving on a trip. So that was on a Friday night. He was leaving on a trip a whole week later, the next Friday night. And so he messages me the next day after our Friday night dinner date. And, which actually, by the way, he told me in that experience that he was not dating. So I was like, he wasn't dating yet. And I remember thinking like, oh, like I thought this was a date. And it's kind of like, well, I'm on a date, like and it's kind of like we got to his house and there's just this beautiful feast he's prepared and it's just the two of us and it's Friday night. And I think he even lit candles and just thinking, okay, well, if this isn't a date, I'd love to see what a date looks like for you. I tease him about that still all the time. But he's like, no, it was a date. I just didn't realize it. I didn't realize
Yeah,
it.
he was in date denial.
Yeah, he was in
Oh
denial.
yeah.
And so, yeah, after that, I was very tempted to, again, follow up on all these things. It's like the old habit dies hard. And he was sending me text messages every night, and we were kind of exchanging ideas and our feelings about things. And I was and he kept saying like, oh, I'd love to talk to you more about this. And I'm thinking like, okay, like when? Tell me the date and time. Like, let's do it.
How about now?
And
Now it's good for
yeah,
me. It's now good for you. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And so he said, oh, this will have to wait till I come back from my trip because I'm leaving on Friday. And I was thinking, like, Friday is 4 days away from now. Why can't we get together between now and then? But I got so much good coaching of like, what's your vision, Amanda? It's like, I'd love to see what it feels like to be able to receive and really trust someone's interested in me and not be like poking around trying to get something to happen.
Like out of
That
fear
was,
that you're not going to get what you want. Yeah.
yes, right. Not be in fear. Like, what would it be like to use this as an experiment in receiving and experimenting with Laura's crazy ideas about dating, which, I didn't think they were crazy, but they were crazy compared to what I was doing. And so I was like, okay, I'm experimenting. And so sure enough, it's funny. So he texts me, he's leaving on Friday, he texts me on Thursday morning, something continuing the conversation we've been having. And I'm like, okay, like, I guess, he's going away for 10 days and he actually gets back right after I leave for 10 days. So we're not going to see each other for 3 weeks. And okay. It feels like there's a lot of momentum, but I'm just going to keep sticking to my plan here of, experimenting. And at 4:00 that afternoon, he texted me and he says like, oh, it's such a beautiful, it was the first warm day. It was in May. It was the first warm day after a really long winter. And I was supposed to be co-working with a friend, and we were both like, we can't work. It's so beautiful out. We got to go outside. And my friend and I both said this, and I get a text and it says like, hi, Amanda, hope you're enjoying this day. And I'm doing my errands to get ready for my trip. And I happen to be going to your neighborhood. Like, would you like to go for a walk? So I'm like, yes, I would. And so I drive home because I wasn't home. And yeah, we ended up going on this walk we went like walking through the forest, and we ended up kind of getting lost and ending up in this place I never really walked before. And I was so thirsty. And I just said, I was like, I'm so thirsty. And I said, I would love some water. We didn't have water bottles or anything. And so I don't even remember how it happened. It was such I expressed that desire, and we ended up like approaching some people who were on their lawn right there and asking if we could have some water and having this whole conversation with them. I felt like I was in this magical alter universe of like having this connection. And here we are out on this walk. We don't have water bottles. These people are giving us like rose flavored water, special water they had. But he told me we're out in this beautiful view looking out on the ocean, and on this place I'd never been because we got lost. And he says, I wasn't expecting to say this, but I just feel my heart feels so warm with you, and I don't really know what to do with it. I wasn't expecting, I wasn't dating. I wasn't expecting this to happen, and I just feel so comfortable with you. And because what I didn't say is the day that I met him, almost the first thing he had said to me was, forgive me if I'm a little bit subdued, but I just got the news this morning that my divorce was finalized. I got an email. It started at 9 months ago, and you just never know when the kind of bureaucratic process will end. And it happened to end this morning. And so that was, he hadn't been dating. He had been kind of grieving and processing and releasing and adjusting to his new life. And so then, this fast forward, this is like the third time we've ever seen each other. And he's telling me like, I wasn't expecting this. I just feel so comfortable with you. And I just received that. I was like, oh, I'd love to just like savor. I feel all these bubbly feelings, and I'd just love to sit here with you and savor that. I'm feeling so happy hearing it. I feel bubbly. And so we didn't know what was going to happen. We just kind of sat there with the beautiful view, the first warm day of the year. And Yeah. And so you asked, how did we end up having a baby? Because then, so we ended up finally making it back to my house, figuring out how to get home. And I had to help a friend who needed a ride somewhere. So I was like, I have to go. It's starting to get dark and to pick up this friend. And so we're like, okay. And he drives away. And then I check my messages, which I hadn't looked at my phone in a really long time. Check my messages, and the friend wrote, never mind, I found a different ride. I don't need your help. So I'm like looking at my phone. So I just walk out into the driveway, and my date, Ben, I was calling him Ben at the time. Now I call him Benjamin. He's still pulling out. And so I just like hold the phone up like this, like as if he would know what that means. It's funny. But I was like, well, I don't actually have to go right now because, this errand I had. So he kind of like pulls back into the driveway, and we talk some more. And, he says, well, I know. So I have to back up a little bit that again, I told you when we first met, on that walk, he had shared with me, forgive me, I might be a little subdued because I had this news this morning of my divorce. Um, and I had stopped and said like, wow, that seems like a really big deal. Like, and he said, yeah, it is a really big deal, but I've also done a lot of processing. I got to cry with some friends this morning, which I was just like, who is this guy? That's amazing. Cried with some friends. And then he turns to me and he asks, he asked, how do I know the friend who connected us? And the reason I knew her is because she had pursued the path that I was on, which was becoming a mother on her own. And she had her own amazing miracle. So she ended up, getting married and having the father. She didn't end up having to have a baby on her own, but she had gone through the whole process. And so she was supporting me around the process of like choosing a sperm donor and everything. And so he had asked me like, how do you know this friend? And I said, well, I'm in the process of becoming a mother by sperm donor. So I told him that right away, literally within 3 minutes of meeting each other. So there's no secret that I wanted to be a mom and that I was on that timeline. And I felt very peaceful because it was like, I didn't have this like big thing happening in my life that I was hiding. It just was out in the open. And so then when we have this, this walk a few weeks later, the third time we were seeing each other, and he pulled out, and then he comes back in, and we're sitting on my couch talking, and he says, well, he's just telling me like, I like you so much. And this, it seems like really fast, but I really like you. And he said, and I know where you stand on having children, but you do want to know where I stand. Like, you must be curious about me. And I just kind of like laughing because like, I actually hadn't been, I figured for one thing, I didn't need to, because I had sort of, like accepted that I was going to be doing that on my own. I wasn't like needing to sort out, like, are you going to have a baby with me? It's kind of like, it seemed like impossible. So it's like, well, so when he asked me, you must want to know where I stand on having children, I was like, sure. I wasn't like, yes, like,
yes, please. You're like,
yeah,
okay.
I'm like, I said, sure. If you want to tell me, I'm happy to hear about it. But I think I just thought, I was thinking like, if he wasn't interested in that, he wouldn't have kept hanging out with me after I had shared that right at the beginning of our meeting. So
yeah,
I just was trusting. And so he said, I hadn't never thought about it before. It wasn't an option in my life before now. And for various reasons, which that's his story. And, but it wasn't an option. So I had never thought about it, but it definitely touches something in my heart to think about it. And, I've only been divorced for, it's only been about a year, or maybe it was 9 months at that point. So, I've just been focused on healing from that. I haven't been thinking about whether I want to have children. And he said, so I just never imagined I would have kids anytime in the next 6 months. like he's like, and I don't want to slow you down because I know you're on that path. And I just laughing to myself because the thought I had at the time was that is the most specific number any man has ever given me about having children. And he's saying, I'm so sorry that it's so vague. I'm so sorry I'm being so vague and that it can't be more, that it's so abstract or that it can't be more precise. And I just like, that's fine. There's no, I was just so appreciated hearing that. And then, yeah, I think it was really only 6 weeks after that, he was leaving to go on a meditation retreat that had been he really deepened his practice in the previous year, going through this divorce that he was in. And so he was leaving to go on a meditation retreat, and then he had another retreat like 6 weeks later that he'd already scheduled. And he came back. In the meantime, we spent a lot of time together, really deepened our connection. And so when he came back from the second retreat, since in the time that we knew each other, he said, I know this is very fast, or we've known each other a really short time, but I just don't think this is going to change for me. And I want you to know that I want to be the father of your child, whether or not it's my biological child or not, if you want that.
Wow.
And he said, you don't need to give me an answer or anything. It wasn't like, and it was so, I was kind of shocked. Like I couldn't give an answer. It was kind of like, right now I don't know what words to use.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, amazing. Like you couldn't have, it's better. Like you said, if this was a movie, you'd be like, that would never happen, but it did happen. That's how he brought it to you.
He brought it to me. Yeah.
Unbelievable. All right. Yeah. So, okay. So he says this, and then you think about it for a while, or how do you, what's your response to that?
What was my response to that? I mean, I remember, saying, thank you. Wow. And it's just what a wonderful gift to receive that from you. And I think so that was my immediate response. And then I took a lot of time doing self-care in the next few days, because it's kind of like when you've been longing for something for so long and then it comes along, it's kind of like, it was hard for me to receive it. It was like almost like too much energy, or kind of like, ooh, it's uncomfortable. And is this really real? And is this really the person I want to do this with? And, like all these doubts come up. And because it was, what was very familiar was this feeling of like, oh, that could never happen for me, or just something that was always in the future. And here it was unfolding, and it was like, oh, this is happening.
Too good to be true, almost.
Too good to be true. Yeah. That's a lot of the coaching I got at the time. And I'm so grateful that I got so much good coaching, because I think the other thing is that I really felt like I had to finish all of my healing work. I had to finish like all of the healing from the previous relationship, all of my intergenerational trauma healing, before I would be ready for that. And it's like, when these kind of doubts came up for me with Benjamin, really doubts about myself, doubts about the situation, that is like, oh, I need to do more healing, but that's what the coaching was really helpful for. It was like, well, what would it be like to receive this? Whatever the coaching was in the moment, it's like, I didn't have to have everything finished. It prompted me to complete, kind of unfinished business with my previous boyfriend. And if I had waited until I had finished all of those untanglings until I started a new relationship, I wouldn't have started a new relationship, because like there was no prompting to actually finish things.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he asked me, fast forward maybe a month or two into the summer, and he said, I think you would have more space if you moved in with me. Would you like to move in with me? And I was like, oh, thank you. But I was so clear, I'm never moving in with someone again if I don't have this. This was, I didn't say this to him at the time. It's just, when I was reflecting on that. Like, I don't want to move in with someone again without having a life commitment, because it was so catastrophic to have moved in with someone and then separated our lives again, that I just can't go through that again. And so when he asked me about it again, I told him, I said, I'm not, he said, do you mean like a formal marriage proposal? Because we'd already talked about spending the rest of our lives together. And I felt embarrassed, because it's like, no, I mean, I guess so. I guess that is what I mean, because, I said, I thought we do have a commitment to spend the rest of our lives together. And he said, you mean like a marriage proposal, like a formal proposal? And I was like, I guess I'm just an old fashioned girl like that. I guess that is what I mean. And I said, but I'm not sure I'm even ready for that. We have barely known each other 3 months. And so I'm not pressuring you at all. They're just telling you, like, that's what comes up for me when I think about moving in. And I'm not sure I'm ready to do that. And he said, oh, okay. And so I think it was 2 days later that we found ourselves running outside at the end of the day, because the light looked really beautiful through the windows, and this rainbow formed, and then another rainbow formed, and then a triple rainbow formed. I had never seen that before. And he just turned to me and he said, will you marry me? And I said, yes. And we were both like, what just happened? I was like, I guess I was ready, because when he asked me spontaneously, I said yes.
All right. Wow. So just like that, like in a very short time, you meet him, you are upfront about your desires. He's super responsive and like gives you, before you can even ask for it, kind of gives you answers to questions, like big life questions. And then he proposes, he asks you to marry, asks you to move in, and then says, will you marry me? You say yes. So now there's this big question, like, can you get pregnant? That's kind of the next thing?
Well, I just want to say, I love what you said, that I never asked him the questions of, will you have a baby? Will you marry me?
Did.
It's like, I had just expressed those are things I wanted. And that was so different from previous
you were totally on your
relationships.
paper. Yeah. Being clear about your desires and your feelings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, so
that was inspiring, apparently.
Yeah. Who knew, it turns out. And so, yeah, the question was, can I get pregnant? So actually what happened was, so he asked me, will you marry me? And then afterwards we were both kind of stunned. And he said, oh, I wasn't planning on doing that. I would have liked to have a gift for you. I wasn't prepared at all. I would have liked to have a gift for you. And I was like, oh, that's okay. And we talked the next day, and we were kind of like, well, I think we decided we're not going to tell anyone just yet, because it was such a big thing. And he said, how about this is our engagement to get engaged. I want to have it be a really beautiful engagement. I want to give you a gift. And he said, so he brought me a bouquet of flowers, and he said, I am going to give you 12 bouquets of flowers. And on the 12th one, I will ask you again, and then we'll be formally engaged.
Wow.
And sweet. I just, that's the former me would be like, flowers, that's expensive, and they come from far away. And, actually his neighbor was a flower farmer, so they came from his next door neighbor's flower farm, which was satisfying to a part of me. So over the next few months, every once in a while, sometimes it would be a week would go by, and then he would appear with this beautiful bouquet of flowers. And sometimes twice in one day, there would be 2 different incidences where I received this bouquet of flowers. And it was exciting, because I wasn't fully keeping track. And we were hanging out with my brother. He was one of the few people who knew of this plan. And Benjamin gave me a bouquet of flowers. My brother was with us, and he said, are you all still keeping track of how many bouquets? And then, and we said, oh yeah. Or I think Benjamin said it. Oh yeah. And my brother said, so what number are you on? And I said, I think this is number maybe 10 and Benjamin said, oh no, that's number 11. Really, and I was like, we were like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen next? And so, the the 12th bouquet right after we went on this trip. So Benjamin had said, well, I don't want to propose to you. I don't want to get engaged to be married before we live together. And I was, I'm sorry. He said, I don't want to, you asked about the baby. He said, I don't want to, like go forward with having a baby before we've lived together. And I was thinking, there's no way I can do the whole energy of a huge move before getting pregnant. It just feels like that takes so much time and energy. And I just didn't feel like I had it in me. And in the past, I would have been like, well, we have to sort this out, but I just let go of, well, I don't know how this is going to work. I just expressed like, I would love to, he knew I would love to have a baby, and he invited me to move in with him. Well, what ended up, and it's like, how's this going to reconcile that? I feel like the next big thing in my life would be getting pregnant, and he feels like we need to move in together. I don't know how this is going to resolve. So we went on this big trip so that he could meet my family, and we met a bunch of his friends, and we traveled across the country, went to lots of different places, and we were gone together for 3 weeks, and it felt like we were living together because we were on this trip together, and each new place we kind of made our little space together. And so he gave me that 11th bouquet when my brother was there at the end of our trip. And I think the next day or a few days later, we flew home, and he gave me we got home, and then there's this beautiful ritual around giving me the 12th bouquet of flowers. It was so beautiful, so perfect. And so now we were formally engaged to be married. We told everyone that he gave me this necklace that I'm wearing. This was an engagement gift. I got to share, we're getting married. And then a little while later, we set the date for our wedding. And I remember thinking, well, and I told you I'd had this vision of like, I love to have this big wedding with everyone there before having a baby, but I don't know how that could happen because I feel like I need to get pregnant right away, and planning a wedding is a huge thing. So I don't know how that's going to happen. So yeah, we actually consulted with someone who was a childhood mentor of mine from the synagogue that I grew up in when we were on this trip, and we were back in the town I grew up in. And I introduced her to him, and she was just like, oh, he's so wonderful. And we told her this dilemma, like, we have this question, we want to have a baby, and we don't know what the timeline is. I've never tried to be pregnant before. I don't even know if it'll be possible. And I would love to just have a big wedding with everyone there. And I want to do that before having a baby, not because of propriety or anything. Just, I want a chance to celebrate our connection before we turn our focus on a baby.
Pure desire.
And so,
yeah.
Pardon?
Pure desire. That was a pure desire. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this mentor said, she said, just go ahead with that project. I think that's the word she used. And, things will take care of themselves. And so we're like, okay.
Wow.
So then we got home and got formally engaged, and we set the date for our wedding. And I remember feeling hesitant to share the date with people. And I said to him, if we get pregnant as soon as we start trying, I'm going to be 7.5 months pregnant on our wedding day. And I've never been pregnant, but what I know is like, seems like when you're that close to your due date, you're really tired and uncomfortable, and, you're not really in a place to have a big party. And so, I think I got coaching about that from different people. Like, well, we have this date, but I'm hesitant to share it because I really want to get pregnant, and I don't know how. And I just talked to, coaches who they said, I've had 2 children, I've had 3 children. Like, I feel really good in the 7th month of pregnancy, or if you're pregnant, everyone's going to want to help you. Everyone will help you. And if you need to take naps, you'll take naps. So I said, okay. Okay. So so sure enough, as soon as we started trying, we got pregnant, and I was 7.5 months pregnant on the day that we got married.
Unbelievable. Wow. It's such a miracle, isn't it? Like, doesn't it feel like a miracle to?
It feels like a complete, yeah, it's hard. I mean, I pinch myself all the time. It does feel like a
Yeah.
miracle.
And the father of your child is not some stranger from the sperm bank. It's this man, this wonderful man that you love, and who loves you. And so it's kind of, I mean, is it fair to say this exceeds what you dreamed of having?
It's just, I could never have imagined a way that this could all have worked out. That, I remember going to the grocery store and seeing families where there'd be two kids and the mom, and the kids would look just like the mom. And then like the dad would come and the kids would look like the dad. And I just feel this pang in my heart of like, oh, I know maybe it's frivolous, but just so sweet how they all look like each other. Like you can see they're a family, and just, I just like, oh, poor heart. Like it's okay. You're not going to have that with your, whoever you end up being with in the long run, but you'll have other beautiful things. And families happen all sorts of ways. Like I had to just like face that. And now I have, whenever I see people with my son, they're like, he looks like a miniature, he looks like a replica of your husband. Like, they're just like, I can't get over it. He looks exactly like your husband.
So you have all that you were grieving that you weren't going to have. It's amazing. Like great job. What a great story of choosing your faith over your fear, Amanda. I love it. It's so exciting.
Thank you.
And, I mean, this is random, but do you plan to have more children?
Oh, I love that you're asking me that. Yes.
Am I allowed to ask that? I don't know.
Well, my dream all along was, I'd love to have children. It wasn't just that one child. I am the third of four siblings, and I absolutely adore my siblings. I love the feeling of being part of like a family that has a culture, and my siblings have been, friends change throughout life, but my siblings and I, like,
They're always connected.
We're connected forever. And, yeah, so I mean, it's funny because Benjamin, at one point when we were talking about, or I think when I was pregnant, he was like, I love this so much. Like, we should have 10 children. I'm like, like I just
So
never
dreamy.
knew. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, I don't think that's physically possible, sweetie. Like, I'm at this, when I gave birth to my son, I was 43. So, but, yeah, so the answer is
this is
you
more
asked
about
me,
your desire.
do you
Your
plan to have more
desire.
children? I mean, if it were just easy to wave a magic wand, because of course, being pregnant and then like giving birth and having a newborn is just the most physically, I don't want to say like challenging, like the most physical engagement I've ever, of course it's challenging and beautiful and all the things, like it's such incredible physical and emotional, undertaking.
Exertion. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, if I just think about the family of like my son having a younger sibling, then I'm like, oh, of course I would want that.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome. I mean, your desires have taken you such a long way, just honoring those desires. So I hear a desire to have another one. I guess that was really more of my question. That's what I should have asked. Would you love to have some more? Because you seem pretty good at just manifesting the thing you're desiring. That's, I think, what my big takeaway from your story is: choosing your faith and really honoring your desires. This is taking you a long, long way. It's just beautiful, very inspiring. So let me ask you this: what is your relationship like now?
Oh my gosh. I just feel all this like giddy excitement. I was like wanting to tell you all the things, I could talk forever about how amazing my husband is. And, I wanted to be married for a really, really long time before getting married for the first time at age 43. And it's even better than I imagined.
Wow.
It's
Amazing.
just, it's like having someone, I mean, it's funny because this morning when I was talking about, I was nervous to come talk to you, and Benjamin was saying, "Oh, you're going to be so great, honey." Um, and I was telling him that I started crying, and I said, I'm just so grateful to Laura and to the intimacy skills, because there's no way I would have met you and we wouldn't have our son if I hadn't encountered Laura. And he was really touched, and he said that's not true. I would have found you anyway.
Oh, so sweet. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like what we all dream about, what every woman dreams about, and you have that. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Amazing. What's your, oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry to interrupt. I just want to say something, because it doesn't mean that I don't find myself saying things I don't like sometimes, especially right now. Our baby is just getting over the flu. And so I have gotten much less. My sleep has been very interrupted. And I find myself sometimes reacting or like blaming Benjamin for something. And I feel like, oh gosh, like, that's still in me, like the part that blames. And he's so gracious. He's when I apologize, he's like, it's okay, I understand, or I love you anyway. There's something about seeing like these really ugly parts of myself surface, especially right now with like being strained physically, and being loved and accepted in that is so healing. And yeah. But I just want anyone listening, it's not like I never like say mean things, or it's not like he never says something that hurts me. It's just the being able to come back really quickly.
Yeah, there's a lot of emotional safety. It sounds like it's never, no marriage is perfect. So yeah, including
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah. He said something. We had to take the baby to urgent care on Saturday because he had spiking a fever. So we're both tense, and I don't like going to the doctor. I always feel criticized there. We're driving home, and Benjamin said something to me like, "Oh, well, I wonder what's going on for you, because you just haven't been able to make a decision today." And I just like blew up. I was like, like, can I just have some appreciation? And he said, you know what, you're right. You've been doing such a great job. Like, just, there's something about and I felt so disarmed by his lack of defensiveness that it's just seeing someone who models, and like, how did he get this way? Like, he's so, he's just able to quickly drop any defenses. And, yeah. So
Yeah.
wasn't expecting to share that story.
No, I love it though. I mean, there's a lot of healing. That's been my experience. Like the best healing journey I ever went on was like being married. Being married was the best healing journey. And in some ways, like how I met my guru, right, who taught me, like, and mirrored back to me some of these gifts that you're talking about that are so, such a tall glass of water in the desert to have that kind of acceptance and love, right? So it's beautiful. So what is your tip for a woman who is like maybe with a guy, really wants to have a baby, and he's like not stepping up and to do that, and it's it's just very painful. She's not becoming a wife, not becoming a mom, and she wants what you have, which is married to the dream man, having the dream baby, and like just creates all this from what seems like an impossibility. Maybe like her, she's feeling like her chance of being a mother is very limited. What's your best advice for her? What's your tip?
I know people like that. I know lots of people who I love so much and are such amazing women, like doing incredible things in the world, and are gorgeous and, vibrant. And so I know lots of women in that category. And I think one thing I notice which was exactly my situation, was that, I felt like I am with the man I am with the man of my dreams. I felt that way with my former boyfriend. And when I hear women say that now, they're like, yeah, except he doesn't want to be partners, or he doesn't want to be a father. And I think there's something about acknowledging, like, it's so painful or so heartbreaking to feel like this is the man of my dreams, or this is the man I want to be with. But that he doesn't want the things I want. And for me, once I met my husband, I was like, oh, I see, like, the man of my dreams, it's not going to be so hard. There's not this like drama back and forth. In fact, the challenge with my husband, who I'm married to now, is that almost like he was just so clear and ready. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I can go this fast, like he's just ready to give me all the things I want. And like, can I really receive that quickly? That just something like, it doesn't have to be so hard. And that, to speak from the 6 intimacy skills, there's something about relinquishing control of like this man who I'm with or have been with for a long time. Isn't there's something I want with him that I am not getting, and what would it be like to relinquish control of that and fully like respect myself and honor my desires. I would just say it's so worth it. I felt like there's not time for me to have that, and there's like other important things for me to do in the world, and I just or it's selfish or something to put all this energy towards wanting a baby or wanting a husband. And just for me, seeing the amount of joy that has come into the world through my son's arrival, like, I mean, my husband is loving being a dad. The baby himself is like one of the happiest people I've never, ever, it's just like he's loving being alive. And then my family and community, like the way that everyone's just filled with joy from this wonderful person arriving, that I'm like, it's amazing that this came from, I had this desire. It's like, for me, something about relinquishing control, like, I can't put it down. Like, I have to surrender to that. That's a desire I have, to be a mom. And like, look at all this beauty that has come through from me, like just being like, you know what, I have to do it. I have to honor that.
Amazing. It's beautiful. So powerful. I love it. What would you say to Amanda now, if you could go back in time and tell her what you know now?
I think I would just say, like, you're you don't have to control anything. There's something about, you get to just receive your own desires. Like, you don't have to, you can handle the heartbreak. I mean, it was just absolutely torturous going through that breakup. And I didn't think I was going to survive. I felt like, I just can't bear this. I don't think I can make it through the night. I had that thought so many times. And just to keep saying, like, you don't have to figure this out. Just keep like resting in the faith of the other people around you. There was something comforting about that. You don't have to figure this out. Just one step. That's what I tell myself, kind of. Just one step. Just take care of this moment, like one step at a time. Like, what does Amanda need to be taken care of for right now? Just, that's all.
Wow, I like that. Just breaking it down instead of like the whole big bad future crashing down on you all at once. There's just like, what do you need right now? What would feel nice right now? Mm-hmm. And look where you landed with that. So incredible. Well, I want to just congratulate you and give you my Best Wife Award. Congratulations, Amanda. You totally deserve this. You chose your faith again and again, and you got support, and you relinquished control. You faced your fears, right? You were courageous. You were vulnerable. And it created something magical and beautiful, a family where there was none. And I just find it very moving.
Oh, thank you so much, Laura. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a statue to give you, but I wish I. Yeah, just the courage, whatever courage it took for you, because I know a lot of what you say is really controversial, and for in some communities or with some people, it was certainly for me, and I just really am so grateful that you've had the courage to keep saying what you're saying, what you know to be true, or what you've discovered in your experience, and to have the courage to keep supporting other women through that, because it's created a family where there wasn't one in my case. I wouldn't be here without you. My son would not exist without you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I'm so glad we get to be on this journey together and keep inspiring each other and lifting each other up and lifting up the world.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. For more of the proven secrets on how to make your marriage playful and passionate without his conscious effort, check this out.